It's the Hearthstone Grandmasters European region. We're in the inaugural season, week 1, day number 1 here. That's Admirable, and I'm joined by Darroch Brown, and just came off of our first 3-game set of the day.
We did. It was a nice change of pace from just one player being absolutely curb-stomped for the whole series.
Curb stomped. Very nice way to put it. We have one more match today before we head over to the Americas region for the Grandmasters segment there. It's RDU versus Swidz is our next one coming up. And if you're curious about Grandmasters, wondering what it is, we got a handy graphics here to show you and explain to you exactly how it works. 48 players across the 3 regions that we have in play. Americas, Europe, which we're on right now, and Asia Pacific. They'll compete over the course of 8 weeks. 3 days of play per week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where all of the players from each region will play during that time. So 16 of the best that Hearthstone has to offer will be playing here. So if you have a favorite player, they're playing sometime throughout the weekend, so make sure you keep the schedule up for it.
That's right. I think everyone's playing twice over the weekend as well, so a whole lot of action. Twice as tice.
Twice. I get it.
Very good.
Because it's supposed to be nice.
Exactly.
But instead you said tice.
That's exactly what I said.
Very tice one there. And they're going to be using Specialist format, not the Conquest or Last Hero Standing we're used to. We are in a new format territory.
That's right. Our brand spanking new format here for this year's Hearthstone competitive season, where you are bringing 3 decks to the tournament, but all have to be of the same class and share 25 of the same cards. Those 5 cards that you're allowed to switch in between your primary, secondary, and tertiary deck is where you have to tech to be able to beat your opponent's strategies. After you queue up your primary deck in the first game of the series, you play a best of 3 where you can switch to one of your primary, your secondary or tertiary decks in the remaining games.
And those tech choices make a big difference, whether it's going to be something to shore up a matchup or perhaps a silver bullet style card, which can just take out something that's paramount and key and critical to your opponent's strategy.
It absolutely can be. We just saw from Fino, for example, who realized he self-admittedly made a mistake. Bring this Hexlord Malakras. He does not think it's the way to go, and you need to be going for much more tempo cards in that matchup to be able to try and take down the warrior.
Seems like it's just become more and more of a focus over the years is Hearthstone and tempo. Less value,
what do you know?
More tempo. It seems to be the key to the game. So RDU versus Swidz is our next match. We'll be taking a look at Swidz deck list first. This is also our first mirror match of the day here, where Swidz has brought Bomb Warrior, and pretty similar to what Bunny Hopper brought to the table. However, there's a second copy of Tau Crier and a second copy of Brawl in place of some of the more long-term oriented choices that Bunny Hopper had.
Yeah, for a primary deck, this is not really what you want going up against a control warrior. You just want as many threats as possible, I think, all the tempo options, and to get as many bombs shuffled in as possible. Or, obviously, to go for the fatigue strategy with Archivist Elysiana that we see Swidz has in his secondary deck. But while you say this is a mirror match, that's not quite true. It's very close. The classes are the same. But RDU has gone for the much less popular Control Warrior as opposed to the Bomb Warrior,
which Fino had just called unplayable.
What do you know?
What do you know? Youthful Brewmaster plus Archivist Elysiana is the ultimate game plan for the deck, where it outlasted the fatigue measure just about anything out there, should it live long enough to get to that point. And so looking at RDU's deck list, the double Acolyte playing double shield block. A lot of times in old control warrior matchups, these were cards that you did not use because of the fatigue plan was setting in, and Elysiana just breaks all those rules.
And I think one of the reasons why Fino was saying that Control Warrior is unplayable at the moment, what he was alluding to is the fact that it's just not very good against Bomb Warrior whatsoever. The extra threats, the bomb generation in Swidz's control deck should be able to get the kill the majority of the time. However, with the primary decks lining up against each other, Swidz has no Elysiana. He has no ability to shuffle cards into his own deck. And so maybe if RDU can weather the storm of bombs early on, he might be able to go to a fatigue game plan and win there.
This is one of my favorite matchups in the game.
We're very different people, you and I, Admirable.
Did you like Jade Idol?
Did I like the card or the Jade Druid mirrors?
Both.
I liked playing Jade Druid. I guess I could say I like Jade Idol. I appreciated that it was, in some ways, damaging to the meta at the time.
I appreciated that it was in some ways damaging to the meta.
I think it's a fair way of putting it.
A fair way of putting it, just it's weird that that's the reason you liked it.
Well, I mean, I liked playing the deck. I enjoyed playing Jade Druid on ladder, even though I knew that overall it was detrimental to a lot of players' experiences at the time.
I see. So the fact that you inflicted harm onto others was part of the enjoyment that you got from the deck.
If If that's what makes you happy, then go for it, my dude.
Found ourselves in Rich Caliber. First key interactions happened here. You know, RDU having the Attorney Rover and the Town Crier early on, I always feel like these cards in this matchup just don't do anything.
I agree. They do very little. They are not meant for this matchup.
Also very surprised that RDU is choosing to shield block here over just simply hero power. I feel like his hand is pretty good already. I feel like that's just an opportunity cost.
So I think this is actually a really good point to talk about the, while players are just going through their early couple of turns, what the overall strategy here is for both of these players. Because for RDU, drawing a card there, I think, is in a microcosm kind of showing what he wants to be doing in this matchup. He wants to play quickly. He's up against a bomb ray which sees his tempo very aggressively, gets those bombs shuffled in. So just hero powering every turn arguably doesn't get him through to his own answers, his own removal, and also his own tempo of his own quickly enough to the point that hero power would not have done.
And that's kind of where my curiosity sets in too, though, is the opportunity cost of a hero power. You know there's going to be a lot of them. You know it's going to happen, and you know you're going to be doing it.
Absolutely.
Each hero power wipes out 40% of a bomb activation.
Checks out.
He just gave his opponent 40% of a bomb. They're going to hit at some point. This matchup, unless Swidz just blows RDU out of the water, it's going to go to the late game.
Okay. Okay, so I think I agree with you in this instance that he is probably going to be floating mana in the next couple of turns to be able to go for hero power and shield block on the same turn. But having said that, Coin Dr. Boom is very possibly going to come out on turn 6, I would say. And from there on, he will have a lot more mana to spend every turn. Yeah, very nice and easy there.
Yeah, I might say something that I'm going to get a lot of hate for. I don't think you should play that yet.
Really? Elaborate.
I think that hero powers, when you're Control Warrior, are extremely important. I think he's got plenty of cards right now to operate with. I think when it gets to the end of the game, he has more cards than Swidz has. I think that foregoing the opportunity to get more armor costs him something here. I think you want to use your Brawl. I think you want to use your Warpaths. I think you want to expend your resources and then have Dr. Boom bridge the gap from that point when you're out to the point at the end.
I do not agree with you.
Nobody does.
Yeah, apparently I'm just a sheep with going with the popular opinion, but I think the tempo saves you more health than the hero powers would every turn because nothing connects to your face for the whole game.
I generally agree that that's true.
I also think that getting the chance to gain 7 is almost chance to gain 7 armor 1 every 5 hero powers, or 1 every 4, is almost as good as.
It's 1 every 5.
1 every 5, but yeah, it can't be the same one twice. I was wrong. Yeah, 1 every 5 times is pretty much as good as going for the hero power just for 2 every single turn.
I don't disagree with you. I think if this game went anywhere close to Swid's favor, RDU has to play the Dr. Boom in that spot, or he's not going to recover. I think in this spot, Swidz has an Eternium Rover.
Yeah, like in the when Odd Warrior first started popping up, when Dr. Boom first entered Odd Warrior after the Boomsday project came out. At first, in the mirrors, I was actually thinking, maybe you save Dr. Boom, maybe you don't play it because 4 armor every turn really starts to stack up. Even then, with the Odd Warrior 4 hero power armor a turn, I still think you just slam Boom as early as possible.
And I'm curious about the Ziliax too. I think Ziliax is a very vital tool at the end of the game. I was watching RDU play this on stream yesterday when you and I were, watching streams and going over the matches and talking about, what are we going to talk about during this time? I don't think RDU played fantastically in his stream set yesterday. And right now, his play is very much emulating what I saw yesterday. And I think that he went to some very long games that were very close and competitive. And just at the very end, he was missing something small.
So if you had to condense it down, what is lacking in his style of play? What is he doing wrong, you think, in a macro sense?
I think it's impatience.
You think he's playing too quickly with he's tempoing out his cards too early?
I think so.
Interesting. Because I would argue that this, so in terms of fatigue, he never needs to worry about fatigue.
Nope.
There's not a chance that he runs out of value compared to his opponent.
Absolutely correct.
But I think he also has so much card draw on his deck that he doesn't need to worry about running out of stuff to do in the early game or mid game either, because he can do stuff like this to refill his hand.
I would argue that point is more reason why he doesn't need to necessarily play Dr. Boom. He doesn't run out of stuff to do, he doesn't need to worry about fatigue, and he has plenty of time.
Okay.
That 3 damage he's about to deal right there doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just a point I'm making.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm right.
I see where you're coming from. I definitely still disagree with you.
It's weird.
But I see your point.
But I'm a weird person, and I think anybody who's listened to me for any amount of time, including if this is the only conversation you've ever had with me, you know that's true.
That I will definitely agree with. You got me on that one.
And so since Swidz couldn't get off to that beautiful lead that you normally have, you end up in this situation where he has to play a more defensive role. He has to find a setup for bomb activations to become good.
See RDU float 7 mana there? Not 7 mana?
Kaboom.
I would have played it there too if I hadn't played it already.
Defend the gates.
Yeah, I think that would have been a more prime opportunity to play it, honestly.
Well, what else was he doing? Because you said you didn't like his playing of Ziliax there as well, because it's a prime piece of removal. There was nothing else in his hand.
It's okay to just take 2 damage. It's a 1/3.
But why would you do that when you're not doing anything else? Like,
You save the Ziliax for later. You're going to take
oh,
damage.
the Ziliax. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I mean, you don't have to play the Ziliax, but the Doctor Boom. Then otherwise you're just floating 6 mana.
Well, I would play the Dr. Boom one when I floated 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think the coining of it, a little early for my taste.
One. Yeah. Okay. I feel like my point got lost there.
It probably did.
It tends to do that.
Listen to who you're talking to right now. Listen to everything I just said that I sternly believe.
Lordy.
I'm even aware that it sounds crazy. I kind of like it.
Really? The antagonistic part of it is part of the charm for you. That's admirable. Is that true?
Much like you and playing J-Druid on ladder back then.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh, I still remember those first few weeks. The Frozen Throne. 2 mana Innovate. 5 mana Plague.
Remember that time I said you shouldn't play Dr. Boom as early as possible?
The good old days.
Nice tempo play here for Swidz. Finally, the threat of some damage.
Yeah. But as we have seen time after time after time, it ain't gonna stick. This is what Dr. Boom does best. He just kills pretty much everything, every single time. Apart from that Eternium Rover.
Well, almost an interesting spot. If he had the ability for Swidz, that is, to have just that 1 extra mana for this. Oh, he has Shield Slam in hand. Okay, never mind. This is a very interesting spot. This is a critical moment here for Swidz.
Wow, that seemingly insignificant Eternium Rover on board is actually pretty good here.
It forces out an Omega Devastator.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess it just gets cleared off fairly easily.
Well, I mean, Omega Devastator, I think, is
It's
an
an important card.
extremely important card.
I agree.
A lot of times you have to use Omega Devastator right away, and that's fine. It's a very good play. But this is, in my opinion, one of the prime endgame effects to be using, is if you can use all your other resources first, you end up on this spot.
RDU agrees with you as well, to such a degree that he is bouncing back his Omega Devastator over bouncing the Archivist Elysiana. Is this the play?
I'm curious about it. I want to say no, but then again, you know, both players have drawn fairly aggressively.
I think I like this.
And Swidz does not have an Archivist Elysiana in the main deck. So I think in game number 1, RDU is absolutely free to use Brewmaster simply for value.
Yes, given that there is no ability to shuffle cards, or, well, into his own deck for Swidz. He can obviously shuffle bombs into his opponent's deck.
The reason
10 extra cards always wins Fatigue by a million miles.
And the reason that RDU is free to make this play is because it's an open decklist format. They can see what the other person
Excellent point.
is possible of doing, not necessarily what they are doing in games 2 and 3. You have to get some more information to figure that out.
Yes,
You usually can piece it together, but he knows in game 1 that Swidz doesn't have Elysiana. Otherwise, he would not be making that play ever.
Well, game 2 and potentially game 3 is where things are going to go a little bit crazy, because RDU has a secondary deck with Deathwing and a tertiary deck with Mecha'thun in there. His control warrior builds are fairly nutty, it's fair to say.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy. I like it though.
wow, RDU is playing at lightning fast speed.
And this is also just RDU in a nutshell. You know, we talked a bit about Pheno and oftentimes being quick pace to play. RDU streams a ton of Hearthstone,
Yes,
and he's
he
been
does.
playing Hearthstone since the beginning of competitive play. Being in this spot here, it's really not a surprise to see him do this because he very much relies on that practice to guide him through.
Yes, I feel like I would, however, say RDU, while he is one of the most accomplished players of all time, one of the players I respect the most, he is one of the more fallible players, I will say. He is more prone to make mistakes than some of the other players. I feel like RDU has to work very hard to be at the top level of Hearthstone, which he does. He works incredibly hard. I have a huge amount of respect for him as a player. However, I think it's not quite so deep of an inherent understanding of the game as we see from players in the league like Kalenta or Purple, for example. And so slowing down, I think, is what he needs to be doing here, just to make sure he's not missing anything.
It's just funny.
What the big
Just a bulldozer.
digger he is.
The true sleeper of the set. The one thing I will say that I saw RDU doing yesterday that I think cost the most was using Omega Devastators in spots where he didn't need to be using them.
And so
And
maybe
here,
he learned his lesson.
and here he has clearly had that practice pay off to some degree, where he has saved it and saved it and saved it.
Ooh.
Interested in that play. I think a hero would probably just.
I think I just Warpath.
I think so as well.
I think the weapons project is too important to kill off the Wrench Caliber.
We've only seen one. We haven't seen any wrench calibers from
I
the
don't believe
Swidz
so.
side.
This would be a good time.
Or did we
for
see it
a
on turn
master
4?
plan.
I can't remember back then. We were talking about some nonsense about whether or not you play Dr. Boom as
Oh, this is
Odd hit,
interesting.
keeping full 10 cards in hand, as Swidz is still doing nothing, turn after turn after turn.
Burning a card here for RDU is actually reasonable. The cards that are left don't really have effect on the game. He's already got Dr. Boom in play, he's already got Archivist in hand, he's already used Brewmaster. There's not really anything left to draw that matters. And so he's going to keep his hand full to fight against bombs.
It's part of it. Swidz is also keeping his hand completely full, however. Or just, rather I should say, he's not doing anything this whole game. He's just hero power past, turn after turn after turn. Is he just saving everything for when he finds Dr. Boom?
Well, so I think it's an interesting perspective from Swid's side, where the fact that he doesn't have Dr. Boom, it really does, I think, lay into the game plan he has, where he can generate and keep tempo for a long enough time. I feel like his game plan right now, because RDU has used the Brewmaster, is to wait until Elysiana gets drawn and then figure out a way to get bombs into the deck.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
means he
okay.
will need loads of removal and loads of extra life because he will be into fatigue and going quite deep into it,
Yeah.
where RDU will not.
I'll agree with you there. I think that's definitely the reason why. Holding back as much as possible. I was wondering if he was saving back the Elic and the Wrench Caliber to go Elic, Wrench Caliber, and Clockwork Goblin all on the same turn. But I think he's happy taking the likely 5 damage off of this one bomb, and like you said, saving the rest for post-Elysiana. And RDU now, as you pointed out, not too much he really wants left from his deck. So he's just going to overdraw. Again,
Yeah, I think
on
this
purpose.
is smart. I think this is wise. Yeah, because RDU is also not expending resources, which means Swidz doesn't have clean kills, which means that RDU doesn't have to refill resources, which means that at any point RDU wants, he can use Omega Assembly, fill his hand back up, and try to protect himself from bombs once the board is secured at all.
Such an interesting playstyle from Swidz, because we've seen consistently throughout the day that just playing your cards as Bomb Warrior is very powerful. You curve into Blastmaster Boom, and you just go super wide on the board.
Yeah,
But because he's realizing exactly Elysiana can mess that up, he's taking an incredibly conservative game plan.
This is weird to look at, but
This is very weird to look at.
I think this is the right call. Again, RDU trying to protect himself from an all-in bomb situation, Swidz trying to create a bomb situation, and he's realizing that shake of the head, that's not going to be possible because RDU understands that.
Yeah. now. What, Dr. Boom bottom 2 cards? You don't like to see
That's
that.
also a shake of the head.
Yeah.
Maybe... No.
Now that being said, Swidz has seen a second weapons project get burned away.
Okay.
So I'm curious if there's something he can do with like setting up a wrench caliber
Yeah, just equip it to spend the mana.
and
That's
then
interesting.
having something happen the following turn.
Has Harrison been played as well for RDU? Because that definitely changes it, right? I mean, there's only one card left in his deck that isn't a bomb at this point, right?
Those we'll find out. Artie's got 10 cards in hand, so he can't draw Harrison this turn, so he'd have
Yes,
to have it in
yeah.
hand.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Okay.
Swid's going to draw the last two.
Hey, there he is. Oh, Boom was literally the last card in his deck, with only the bomb being shuffled in as well.
Light the fuses!
And for RDU there as well, the fact that the bomb was overdrawn there is quite important, because it means there's one card left in his deck to disrupt the chain, potentially.
Yeah, so he wants Swidz to all in the spot, and then to have the chain disrupted by the single card, and then to use the Omega Assembly, is that correct?
Okay. Oh, unless the last card is a bomb as well. I guess the last card could just be an extra bomb that was shuffled in by Swidz. But I don't think it was, because he's been so conservative with his bombs throughout the whole game. But either way, a lot of damage going to be coming through here for Swidz.
I feel like this may be a foregone conclusion, though.
I'm almost out of cards! That's it! I'm out of cards!
It was Harrison. And it was the bottom card. That's pretty sad for RDU, given they had to take all the bomb damage here before he can play Elysiana.
Yeah, well, RDU does know that the last cards in Swid's hand are pretty much exactly what they are.
Yeah, I think he'll have been keeping track.
And so he is free to just solve this puzzle, I think. There's going to be the kicker of, you know, what Dr. Boom Mad Genius can do. But that's pretty much it.
And this was a strange... This felt like an inconsistent game plan, I guess is what I should say, from Swidz. Because for turns and turns, he was just hero power passing, not playing any of his bomb cards, presumably to play around Elysiana. Obviously, you don't want your opponent to replace the bombs in their deck with a new deck of cards. But then he just went all in here, which means now that what, Blastmaster Boom isn't active.
Well, I think the game
Elysiana
plan...
can still be played.
I think the game plan was still always get Dr. Boom and have time to use it. Just failed to draw it. You know, I feel like that winning a push without Dr. Boom is not really possible. I think winning a control game without it is possible, but I don't think winning a control game without Elysiana when your opponent has one is possible. And so I think everything just lined up for Swidz in a way where he got put into this position, and what could he do?
And this really is the difference in the decks becoming apparent now, with Swidz having nothing to shuffle into his deck. And for RDU here, it really just does not matter what he's shuffling in. It's just to prevent that fatigue.
Spirit of the Rhino works with Dr. Boom in mechs, correct?
I think so. Can't say I've ever actually tried that interaction, but my brain's saying yes for whatever random reason. Well, I think that was just a bunch of boys, just things you can throw in play.
Yep.
Nothing particularly special.
It's typical Elysiana
Yeah.
stuff.
And yeah, the classic Dr. Boom is as good as you're going to get here.
Wow!
Stuff.
And there you go. The final hurrah from Swidz, it really feels like at this point, as we can clearly see RD is just going to be running away with this one. Short of a miracle off of the delivery drone. Mechathune? Is that ever a thing?
Oh.
Like if he goes Mecha'thun, double Omega Devastator, and then Ziliax Brawl.
I mean, that's the one way that you could get this is with Mecha'thun, but it has to be literally right here, I think. And that's not it.
Wrong 10 drop. Yeah. And it does just beg the question of what went so wrong for Swidz in this game. It felt like either way, whether he went for the bombs before or after Elysiana, it was difficult for it to have been working out, or unlikely.
I think it's easy to look at this game and go, RDU had Dr. Boom and Swidz did not.
Yeah.
But what I really think it was is that Swidz just didn't have Dr. Boom. He is much more reliant on it, I think, than RDU is.
Really?
Yeah, how does he win this control game without an Elysiana?
Well, he doesn't go for the control game. He goes for the...
I'm saying, how does he run RDU out of stuff? The whole deck for RDU is just blow stuff up. It's the entire deck.
Yeah, well, you just try and go for a big turn at the end with, or at some point in the game with the Elix and just shuffling in a whole bunch of bombs and hope that that kills them. Or just go for a really early Blastmaster Boon that they can't deal with. I don't know, I feel like either way it's going to become a lot easier when he does get his own copy of Elysiana put in there. In addition to Ken Bloodhoof, Grommash Hellscream, the Boom Reaver, and another Elic.
I'm just looking at the tertiary plan for RDU, which includes Mecha'thun.
It's a weird list.
I don't know. Swidz beats it.
Does he? Yeah, as this one's wrapping up, we're really just wondering how RDU will proceed because both of his secondary and tertiary decks tech out Elysiana, which could be pretty detrimental if he's... Well, I mean, it basically means if he doesn't get the Mecha'thun game plan, he loses. He needs to win with Mecha'thun if he switches then.
Swidz is done! And after a long-winded battle, RDU shows that Elysiana is in fact important. Two matchups that will go to fatigue state. Easily comfortable. Just wasn't happening there for Swidz.
Yeah, there was just nothing doing there for him. And that's got to feel bad because I know Swidz is one of the players, there's kind of a contingent of French players who are all Control Warrior fanatics. It's just all they've played for the longest time. They were playing a whole bunch of Dead Man's Hand Warrior when that was available in Standard as well. So there's a lot of pride on the line for him there, and that was just nothing.
Swidz, I mean, has really been a Dead Man's Hand purist.
Yeah.
Pretty much throughout that entire metagame, he just constantly showed up and always had good performances with it. But in this game, it just shows that if you're going to make aggressive pushes and you don't have Elysiana, you need to have Dr. Boom Mad Genius to fuel your fire through that, because otherwise it's just not going to work. So game 2 is going to get set up real quick. We're coming back in our 5th match of the day. It's RDU versus Swidz. RDU's got a lead. Don't go anywhere.
The cards see a heart that is stony, and a totem that's all kinda bony. This witch in such danger will soon be no stranger, 'cause she's gonna be our new crony. We welcome you into this room, and we promise your enemies doom. Just one more who's coming. The last one I summon is a fella who makes things go boom.
Well met, friend. Ooh.
Let's get this over with.
What an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
Game number 2 of our 5th series here for the Hearthstone Grandmasters European region. RDU is up 1 game right now over Swidz as they begin selecting their decks for game number 2. For Swidz, he has chosen to go with his secondary deck, which includes a second copy of Augmented Elec, as well as a Cairn, an Archivist Elysiana, a Grommash Hellscream, and the Boom Reaver. Out go 2 Brawls, 2 Eternity Rovers, and a Warpath. For RDU, he is sticking with the primary. He says the same deck is good enough to get the job done.
Yeah, I think for Swidz, it was a fairly easy choice. He just put in the version that has less removal and more threats, as you want against regular Control Warrior. For RDU, it was a little bit more interesting because I would have heard out the reasoning for him to switch over to his tertiary deck, which runs the Mechathune package, while it swaps out the Elysiana Endgame Fatigue package. I think what he's coming to the conclusion to is that he can't consistently get the Mechathune win condition because it relies on him having 10 armor at the end of the game to be able to shield slam his own Mechathune after he reduces its cost by 1 with Galvanizer.
Yeah.
It's a little bit convoluted, but that is basically what he would have to be going towards to be able to win that game. So what he's saying instead is, I'm just favored in the mirror. If we're both going for Elysiana nonsense, I'm going to come out on top.
Yeah, I feel like the combo that he's chosen to include here, which is the double Inner Rage, Galvanizer, Slam, and Mechathune as the package here, it's interesting to me because I feel like there's a couple different ways to do this. I've even run into a variant that plays Mechathune at some point in the game.
Yeah.
And its final 3 cards are the Undertaker, Whirlwind, and Devastate.
I think Yala might be bringing that list as well here this week. Someone's definitely brought that exact list that you're talking about
And
here.
it's quite spectacular to watch because the first time it happened to me, I just went, why the heck did they just play Mechathune? I was like, are they really just going to beat me up? And the answer was no. They're going to play Undertaker, Whirlwind, and then devastate their own Undertaker, which has the death rattle of the Mechathune. Big dummy. Yeah, big dummy. That's exactly what I was.
Job's done.
And now already, the tech decisions from Swidz are starting to look pretty apparent already. As you can see these 2 hands, Grom and Cairn, 2 of the original classic Hearthstone badass cards, are going to be very powerful here.
Yeah, it's a very big throwback to like the days of yore with Control Warrior, where like at some point in the game you turned the corner and had just raw efficiency of your cards. Like they were just so big and dumb that there wasn't really a good way to fight them. The best way to fight them was to kill them before they got to that point, which the entirety of the deck was dedicated to preventing.
It was called Wallet Warrior, right? Like the bottom half of the deck was just like 8 legendaries back in the day. It was crazy. Because, I mean, well, you didn't have Dr. Boom or any other fatigue win conditions. You just had to eventually kill your opponent. And Swidz is absolutely going to be trying to eventually kill his opponent.
Yeah. And I think that in this game, the tempo game plan that you were alluding to in the previous one certainly has a much better chance of winning. I think Swidz was going for a spectacular finish and perhaps even just a foregone conclusion at a certain point in that game. But in this one, with Grom and with Cairn in hand, he has got a pretty major push that can happen in the middle stages.
As the palm off the top of Swidz, you really hate to see that with Blastmaster Boom in hand. And I think, however, even though that happened for Swidz and was obviously a pretty poor outcome, I love the fact that he's just coming in swinging with that Wrench Caliber. He needs to get this hand moving quickly. He's not messing about with fatigue quite yet because RDU is still at an advantage in that state because he is playing Youthful Brewmaster to bounce his Elysiana back. Swidz needs to make up for that deficit of 10 cards by tempoing out turn after turn, which is exactly what he's trying to do.
Yeah. I think in this game you are not going to see RDU use Brewmaster in the same fashion.
I agree.
That's game number 1. And I think in this game that what you're going to see is a lot more resources expended. Like, unlike the previous game, where I feel like RDU is free to just take his time, I feel like in this game, the amount of value that he can generate from Dr. Boom is quite vital. I feel like in the last game, it was more vital to Swidz than it was to RDU. Swidz failed to find it. I feel like in this game, it's much more vital to RDU than it is to Swidz.
Yes, I agree.
He's going to have to fight pressure, actual real pressure at some point.
And like, difficult to remove pressure. These are not just like the highest statted minions that Swidz can put in. These are minions that are tricky to kill off in one go. Like Ken Bloodhoof is very annoying. Boom Reaver summoning out the 2 minions at the same time, one of which gets Rush obviously as well. Could just make it a nightmare for RDU to be able to kill off everything every single turn.
Yeah. I feel like he can kill the stuff very easily. He's just out of stuff after that.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think that's really the one factor that he has to keep in mind is, you know, when can he take damage, when can he not, what kind of turns can he and can he not risk? And shield slamming a 1-2
That's aggressive.
I do not believe him.
With a weapons project in hand as well. It's not like his hand was just, you know, had no armor gain.
What in the world?
The Earth Mother is here.
I am genuinely confused by that.
What was it that he shield slammed? I didn't see as
A 1-2.
It was the 1-2. It was just the
A town crier. Oh, it was specifically to make room for this play?
Okay.
Okay, I can almost believe it now. Because he had fully intended to Warpath this turn.
Okay.
He would have too many cards in hand.
Clear out one hand space. But he could have just played other cards. Like,
what could he have just played, though?
I guess you don't want to play the Devastator. You don't want to play Brewmaster. Ziliax, he wouldn't have had mana. I mean, if this was his game plan, and it is...
Well, it clearly was.
Okay.
Just interesting to me. So, Town Crier is to thin the deck of a Rush minion and then draw. And it says 2 armor. This Acolyte will stick around for a card regardless. That was a well-sequenced turn.
Yeah, it's exactly the amount he needs to not overdraw a single card. I think, given his game plan of going for the Warpath next turn, this was the best way to execute it. I still am not convinced that it was necessarily the best way to approach these couple of turns overall, because Shield Slam is really valuable. Like, if he was convinced he needed to go for the Warpath this turn, okay, I understand your thinking. You want to clear a card out of hand. But with the amount of big threats that Swidz has, every Shield Slam is important. I guess with the executes and the brawls thrown in there as well, he might be able to get it done, to remove everything either way.
Nice looking turn here for RDU. I think I'm more tempted to Ziliax than I am to expend the removal.
Yeah. Especially when you can get the magnetize as well.
Yeah, you actually get a full restoration here.
And also the 4-5 fares pretty nicely against the opposing.
Yeah. Very nice.
Could have seen a trade there, as opposed to going face with the 1-2. Just to set up for a value trade with your 4-5 Eternium Rover.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Works out more or less the same. Taunt is rather annoying though.
Yeah, that's going to force out Militia Commander almost certainly.
Yeah. Or I guess the weapons project, but I guess you can save that for the old Wrench Caliber.
The old Wrench Caliber. Already bought an extra face damage.
That's true. What a god.
A completely unimportant healed back face damage.
But just imagine when it's exact fatigue lethal when Swidz is about to deliver the final blow, and we'll be like, oh my god.
Well, it got healed back by Ziliax.
Hey, there we go.
Let people enjoy things.
We were talking about the importance of the old boom, and here it is. RDU, very happy to see that indeed. Although, would you have played Dr. Boom there? Had you drawn it?
I just stressed at the start of this game how much more important I believe it is because he has to expend more removal than he did in the previous game. So yes, I did Darok. Last game was an exception to the rule.
It's just fun making fun of you. Objectively a good time for the whole family.
You know, I actually do find it fun when people make fun of me as well because I take such a harsh stance back as well. Which I also find very fun, is being as brash and stubborn as possible.
I enjoy you guys making fun of me because it makes me feel like I have value to the community, which I clearly don't.
Swidz' face right now is a feeling of what's happening in this game, where he knows he's at a disadvantage due to the Elysiana difference.
That I find kind of interesting that RDU decided to trade in the 2-2 because he didn't want to save the Death Rattle, because he could have saved the 2-2 Mechanical Dragon and then magnetized on a Beryllium Nullifier, so there's kind of a two-tiered threat. It's like, you know, because this way it loses to, or it dies to the Omega Devastator, which is a reason to hold on to just the 2-2. I don't know.
It's interesting.
I feel it was close. It was close because having threats that are more difficult to remove is how you seize Temple more effectively.
I think it's the Eternium Rover is the reason. Because he has the Eternium Rover Nullifier.
Okay. Yeah. You want to magnetize it onto that.
Yeah, you have an efficient target with the mix-in of a hero power.
Fair enough.
It's like that's the 1-2 punch. And then also sometimes one of these sticks around and you get the I was trying to think of something else other than 1-2 punch, but I guess you just punch really hard. You just
consecutive regular punches.
Yeah, it's getting real tough for Swidz now.
Yeah, and this, to RDU's credit as well, I was looking at, you know, saving the Beryllium Nullifier to magnetize onto the Mechanical Dragon Loom, but he, like, the fact that he baited out, I suppose, sort of baited out the Omega Devastator, meant that now this Beryllium Nullifier is so difficult for Swidz to deal with. He's just going to keep chipping away the board turn after turn.
And so that's really my question for RDU is how does he you know, really snowball that effect to the best degree?
Right. Well, that's the problem with Control Warrior as opposed to Bomb Warrior. It's much more difficult to capitalize on the board control you have.
Or rather that it capitalizes rather unspectacularly.
And it's the valid way of saying it.
It just keeps blowing stuff up. It's like, hey, I blew up a lot of stuff. I'm going to keep blowing it all up. That's what I enjoy about Control Warrior. It's not so much that I defeat my opponent, it's that I've neutralized their attack.
I love that fuse thing.
I enjoy that.
Right, so they can't do anything. It's not just that you've beaten them, it's you've broken their morale as well. And you have a go at me for like the Jade Idol.
Well, no, I liked Jade Idol as well. Remember, I said I like when people have that pushback at me. I was pushing back at myself in that instance as well.
Right, sorry, was I not giving you enough flack?
Super next level insulting.
No, that's called talking to yourself and being insane.
Touche.
Defend the gates!
Yeah, it looked an awful lot like he was just going to tempo out the Blastmaster boom. Okay, as Swidz does have the Mechathune now, which he got, which...
Yeah, that is weird.
It's like Mechathune in a deck, even discovering Mechathune, if the deck is not specifically crafted to make Mechathune their win condition, it almost never works. It's incredibly difficult to get yourself into a board state where you're not dead, and you've played all your cards, and you have nothing on board, and you've drawn your whole deck. It's so many requirements to me. But
Now,
it's something to consider.
If there's a matchup where it happens, it really is this one.
Right, this is the one where I would say it has a chance of working.
The trick to it for me is that Swidz, you know, has now included a copy of Archivist Elysiana in the deck, so it just takes that much longer to actually get to that point.
Oh yeah, of course, because you can't just leave it in your hand and not play it. Okay, yeah. I was thinking in my head you could just not play it, but obviously...
Yeah, so you have to be fighting on even footing here. And so the fact that RDU has found Dr. Boom, which in this game I firmly believe is much more important than the last one, the Elysiana is like almost becoming a liability for Swidz. It's just a weird juxtaposition.
So it turns out that the nuts off of RDU's Hecklebot was to pull out Elysiana, which is what the entire deck is kind of built around.
I think that would have been better for Swidz, yeah. I think he would have a much more realistic chance of winning if he did not have Elysiana in his deck right now.
Really? Because he just Mechathunes.
I think the Mechathune is much more possible. The one thing that's missing from RDU's deck is the silence.
The thing is, I think you're wrong, but I'm not certain.
Ah, yes, my favorite argument.
I think the more likely win condition here for Swidz is still comboing
at this
the
point?
effect of... No. I think that it's more likely that he is able to pull together the Elysiana and the bomb effects. For RDU, he just pulled out Elysiana from his deck. He can Youthful Brewmaster it back
That's a Boom Reaver copy.
if Swidz cannot kill it. Oh, is it a copy?
Yeah, Boom Reaver creates a copy and puts it into play.
Oh, well, that's great then.
Yeah,
We love
it's
to
just
see
a
that.
7/7. It's just 2 War Golems.
Maybe. No.
Yeah, it's awesome. Boom Reaver is one of my favorite cards in the whole set.
That's actually pretty good. I haven't even...
It's just a big
I've never
dumb
put
thing.
this card in my deck.
And Swidz just got big dumb tempoed out of this game. That's lethal on board as
That's
long as
just lethal
RDU
on board.
recognizes it. And indeed he does. 2 decisive games against Swidz. One of them, I think, due to the very unfortunate early draw and pan out from Swidz. This one, I think, was due to RDU just having the goods at every step of the way.
He really did. And to RDU's credit, I think his overall understanding of the matchup looked pretty spot on for the most part. In the first game, deliberately staying at 10 cards in hand and overdrawing card after card because that nullifies the effects of the bombs in your deck, I think was a really heads-up play. And then in this series as well, just as soon as he found the the boom in his deck, he was just constantly throwing out threats, making sure nothing connected to face. It was just kind of taking his opponent apart from there.
Just a very decisive one-sided victory. I'm curious about the side decks that are here too. The Deathwing really is an eyebrow raise for me in his secondary deck, and then also the Mechathune package. I'm curious to ask him about what exactly that was for in this one. Just overall pretty fantastic. You know, Fino just said that he thought Control Warrior was unplayable,
Right.
I believe was the quote. And RDU instead here takes a 2-0 victory.
Doesn't Fino look quite the prize fool?
Just like me about the Dr. Boom critique in game number 1. It sounds like RDU is ready for an interview. RDU, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I certainly can. Congratulations on your win here in week number 1. I wanted to ask you firstly about your secondary and your tertiary decks. In your secondary, you have 2 copies of Ooze, an Iron Beak Owl, and a Deathwing. In your tertiary deck, you have the Mechathune package. Talk to me about where they're good and why.
So the secondary deck is for rogues. I expected my opponent to either play control. My opponents, like, I knew I was playing Swidz and Psycho. I put them on Control Warrior or Bomb Warrior or Rogue. So basically, I teched my main deck for Bomb Warrior, secondary for Rogue, tertiary for Mirror Match of Control Warrior. But like, nobody else other than me and I think Jarla brought Control Warrior. I feel like Control Warrior just beats Bomb Warrior and is slightly favored against Rogue, so it's in a pretty good spot in the meta game. The only downside is that if somebody knows you bring Control Warrior, they can really tech for you with like a super greedy mage, and then you have like no chances, as opposed to like Bomb Warrior, who can always steal the game with bombs.
So tell me through some of the decisions in your your secondary and tertiary deck, and anything you think you would change. Do you like the way they've shaped out, given the way the meta is looking this week?
Well, I wouldn't have brought a Mechathune package if I knew so little people bring Control Warrior. So I would have changed the tertiary deck. The secondary is still good to have in case my opponents had Rogue. I don't think my normal build was like good enough to beat triple Nomi. That's why I played Deathwing, to beat like the Nomi. I tried Spell Zerker, but it wasn't that good for me. It was like sitting way too much in the hand, and like you want to use Warpath before they Nomi, so Deathwing felt like a good card to sweep the board.
I think it's an interesting choice. It certainly makes me think about it a little bit differently. Lastly, I want to talk to you about the metagame and where you think it's shaping up. You have a very different opinion from the majority of players who brought Warrior, in that you think Control Warrior is quite strong. Do you think that's going to continue to be the case, and where do you see the metagame evolving from here?
Well, Control Warrior is strong, but as I said, if Control Warrior is expected, it's very easily counterable. So I feel like the metagame is definitely going to change. Now that everybody brought Bomb Warrior, people probably will bring more control next week. At the same time, people will go like anti-control a bit more. I feel Rogue is kind of underrepresented and will be more represented in the future. Mage is still getting polished. We don't even know what's the best mage list as at the moment. I think the metagame can go anywhere. That's what's interesting about one deck formats. It will change every single week for sure.
All right, well, RDU, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on your win. I'm looking forward to your coming matches, not only this week, but the weeks afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Fewer words than I expected from RDU.
Yeah,
Very clean and concise.
he can be when it's required of him.
He's like me. He's a talker.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
You don't know when to be quiet, though, is the difference.
Oh, amen to that, brother. We're gonna have. We're gonna. What am I doing?
Apparently, you do know when to stop talking.
I see TJ out of the corner of my eye, and I completely lose my train of thought. I'm just so captivated by his presence as he's now karate kicking off stage. We're gonna go to a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna bring TJ and Frodan onto the desk and get set up for the Americas region as we have wrapped up here in Europe. So thanks for joining us, and stick around. We got plenty more Hearthstone to come up after the Europe's done.